The awakening. The crimson warning lights bathed the command deck of the Galactic Council Station in an ominous glow. Admiral Zexter, a towering reptilian from the Kreth Empire, stood frozen before the holographic display that showed Earth's orbital defenses activating for the first time in 3 centuries. "Sir," whispered Communications Officer Ilana, her blue-scale hands trembling as she operated the console. "We're receiving transmissions from the Terran system. They're speaking." Zexter's golden eyes narrowed. 300 years. 300 years since humanity had gone silent after the Great Humiliation. The galaxy had almost forgotten they existed, treating Earth like a quarantine zoo exhibit. "Almost. Put it through," he commanded, though his voice carried less authority than usual. The speaker crackled to life, and a distinctly human voice filled the chamber. It was calm, measured, and carried an undertone that made every alien present instinctively step backward. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Defense Force. We've been watching. We've been waiting. And we've been preparing." A pause that seemed to stretch across the void of space itself. The Galactic Council's recent decision to strip mine the Kepler 442 system, despite it containing 3 developing civilizations, has been noted and found unacceptable. Zexter felt his secondary heart skip a beat. The Kepler incident. Of course the humans had been monitoring their activities, but that was supposed to be classified at the highest levels. Furthermore, the voice continued, now carrying a hint of something that could only be described as barely contained fury. "Your treatment of the gentlefolk of Proxima 7 as slave labor has also been documented extensively." The command deck fell into absolute silence. The gentlefolk operation was known to fewer than 20 beings in the entire galaxy. How could the humans possibly... "Oh, and Zexter?" The voice suddenly became personal, almost conversational. "Yes, we know it's you listening. Tell me, how's your son Drex doing at the Vegan Military Academy? Lovely young reptile. Would hate for anything to happen to his education." The blood drained from Zexter's face, his scales shifting to a pale gray. His son's enrollment was classified beyond top secret. No one outside the family and Academy officials knew. "What do you want?" Zexter croaked into the communications array. A sound emerged from the speakers that chilled every being present to their core. Laughter, not the pleasant chirping of an Alterian or the harmonious humming of a Christek. This was human laughter, rich with dark amusement and promise of retribution. "What do we want?" "Oh, my scaly friend, you have no idea what you've awakened." The laughter faded, replaced by steel. "But you're about to find out." The transmission cut. Zexter stood motionless for several heartbeats before turning to his tactical officer, a nervous insectoid named Chittick. Status report on Terran military capabilities. Chittick's compound eyes flickered through several data streams before responding. "Sir, according to our records, humanity possesses approximately 200 outdated vessels, mostly defensive platforms around their home system. Their population peaked at 12 billion before the isolation protocols. Current estimates suggest they declined to perhaps 8 billion due to resource limitations. And their technological level? Primitive by our standards, sir. They never achieve faster-than-light travel. Their weapons are chemically based, and they rely on inefficient fusion reactors for power." Zexter nodded, though he felt far from reassured. "Then why," he asked slowly, "do I feel like we just poked a sleeping dragon?" Before anyone could answer, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Ilana's claws danced across her console as she pulled up sensor readings. "Sir, we have massive energy signatures emerging from the Sol system. Whatever they're doing, it's generating power levels that shouldn't be possible." The main holographic display shifted to show the Terran system. What they saw defied explanation. Ships, if they could be called that, were emerging from what appeared to be dimensional rifts near Earth's moon. These weren't the crude chemical rockets intelligence had reported. These were sleek, predatory vessels that seemed to bend light around their hulls. "How many?" Zexter whispered. Ilana's voice cracked as she replied. "Initial count shows 2,000 vessels, sir, and more are appearing every few seconds." 2,000? That's impossible. They don't have the industrial capacity to... "Sir," interrupted Chittick, his voice high with panic, I'm reading massive signatures throughout the system. It appears they've been constructing fleets inside the asteroid belt, using stealth technology we can't even detect properly. Zexter's mind raced. The humans had been silent for 3 centuries, not sleeping, planning. Another transmission crackled through the speakers. This time, it was a different voice. Younger, female, but carrying the same dangerous undertone. This is Captain Maria Santos of the Terran vessel Retribution. Admiral Chen sends her regards and asks that you observe the following demonstration. On the display, one of the human ships, no larger than a standard Galactic Council frigate, approached the outer edge of the system where an abandoned mining platform floated. The platform was massive, easily the size of a small moon, and had been left behind by the Veltri Corporation decades ago. The human ship fired a single beam of coherent energy. The platform simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not vaporized. It was there one moment and gone the next, as if it had never existed at all. That was a Class 7 matter disintegration beam. Captain Santos explained helpfully. We have approximately 40,000 of them mounted across our active fleet. Just thought you should know. Zexter collapsed into his command chair, his legs suddenly unable to support his weight. How? He croaked. How is this possible? As if reading his thoughts, Admiral Chen's voice returned to the speakers. You want to know how? 3 centuries, Admiral. 3 centuries of you treating us like primitive animals in a cage. 3 centuries of your species and your allies strip-mining worlds, enslaving populations, and congratulating yourselves on your superiority. The tone shifted, becoming almost professorial. Did you know that isolation can be a powerful motivator? When you cut us off from galactic trade, you also cut us off from your stagnant thinking. While you spent 300 years arguing in committees and exploiting the weak, we spent that time doing what humans do best, which is... Zexter found himself asking, though he dreaded the answer, learning, adapting, and preparing for war. The display showed more human vessels emerging from seemingly empty space. They weren't just coming from the Sol system now. Energy signatures were appearing throughout the Outer Rim territories. You see, Admiral, you made a critical error in your assessment of humanity. You assumed that because we didn't have faster-than-light travel when you quarantined us, we couldn't develop it. You assumed that because our weapons were primitive, we couldn't innovate. Most importantly, you assumed that because we accepted your isolation quietly, we had given up. Captain Santos chimed in again, her voice carrying a note of dark amusement. We spent the first 50 years reverse engineering every piece of alien technology we could acquire through. Let's call them unofficial channels. Took us another century to improve upon your designs. The last 100 years? Well, that's when things got interesting. Images began appearing on the display showing massive construction projects hidden within asteroid fields, underwater facilities on Earth that defied description, and what appeared to be entire artificial worlds tucked away in distant solar systems. The thing about humans, Admiral Chen continued, is that we don't just learn from our mistakes. We obsess over them. We plan for them. And when someone humiliates us, we remember. Forever. Zexter watched in growing horror as the scope of human preparation became clear. This wasn't just military buildup. This was a complete transformation of their species into something designed for one purpose: payback. Now, Admiral, here's what's going to happen. The Galactic Council will immediately cease all strip mining operations in systems containing developing life. The slave labor programs will end, and reparations will be paid to affected species. The gentle folk will be returned to their home world with full honors. And if the Council refuses? Zexter asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. The laughter returned, but this time it was joined by dozens of other voices. Human voices, all carrying the same dark promise. Refuse. Admiral Chen's voice was now pure silk wrapped around steel. Oh, my dear Admiral, you're operating under the mistaken assumption that this is a negotiation. On the tactical display, red indicators began appearing throughout known space. Human vessels, uncloaking near every major Galactic Council installation, trade route, and military base. Hundreds of thousands of ships that had somehow positioned themselves undetected across the galaxy. Captain Santos spoke up again, and Zexter could hear the smile in her voice. "We've been sending out colony ships for the past 2 centuries, Admiral. Sleeper vessels that your sensors couldn't detect because they were designed to look like space debris. Every system you consider strategically important has been under human observation for decades." "This is impossible," Zexter whispered. "The logistics alone." "Impossible for you, perhaps," Admiral Chen replied. "But then again, you've never been hunted to near extinction and lived to tell the tale. You've never had to unite an entire species around a single goal. And you've certainly never had a plan for revenge across multiple centuries." The transmission paused, and when it resumed, Admiral Chen's voice carried a weight that seemed to press down on every being in the command center. 300 years ago, you declared humanity unfit for galactic society. You cut us off, expecting us to wither and die in isolation. Instead, you gave us the greatest gift possible: time to prepare for this moment. Alarms continued to blare as more human vessels appeared on sensors. They were everywhere, and somehow, impossibly, they had achieved this positioning without detection. "The age of Galactic Council supremacy is over," Admiral Chen declared. "A new era begins today. An era where the strong no longer prey upon the weak without consequence. An era where justice isn't just a concept debated in committee meetings." Zexter found his voice. "What are your terms?" "Terms?" The human laughter returned, multiplied across dozens of ships. "Admiral, you still don't understand. There are no terms. There is only justice. Long overdue, carefully planned, and absolutely inevitable justice. The reckoning." The Galactic Council Emergency Assembly had never seen such chaos. Representatives from 47 species crowded into the great chamber, their various forms of panic creating a symphony of fear that echoed off the crystalline walls. Some chittered, others howled, and a few simply stood frozen in terror as reports flooded in from across the galaxy. Chancellor Vorth, the ancient Etherian who presided over the Council for 2 centuries, raised his 6 arms for silence. His normally luminous skin had dulled to a sickly gray, and his telepathic voice trembled as it reached every mind in the chamber. "Order. We must have order." But even his psychic authority seemed diminished in the face of what they were hearing. Representative Clix of the Merchant Guild was the first to speak, his mechanical voice box crackling with static from his agitation. "Our trade routes are completely compromised. Human vessels have somehow positioned themselves at every major hyperspace junction. They're not attacking, just watching, waiting." "The mining consortium reports that every strip mining operation has been surrounded," added Counselor Resch, her tentacles writhing nervously. "The humans aren't even demanding surrender. They're simply sitting there, like predators studying their prey." Chancellor Vortha's compound consciousness reached out to touch the minds in the chamber, feeling the waves of fear and confusion. In all his years of existence, he had never encountered anything like this. The humans had achieved the impossible. They had outmaneuvered the entire galactic community without firing a single shot. "What are our military options?" he asked General Thorax, the insectoid commander of the Council Defense Forces. Thorax's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of extreme stress among his species. "Chancellor, we have a problem. A big one. Our best estimates put the human fleet at over 500,000 vessels. But that's not the worst part. Continue. They're not using any technology we recognize. Our weapons can't seem to lock onto their ships properly. Our sensors can barely detect them even when they're right in front of us. And their defensive capabilities..." Thorax paused, his antennae twitching. "Sir, we fired a full planetary bombardment array at one of their vessels yesterday. It didn't even slow down." A collective gasp rippled through the assembly. Planetary bombardment arrays could crack moons. Suddenly, the chamber's main communication array activated without anyone touching controls. The familiar voice of Admiral Chen filled the space, but this time it carried an undertone of satisfaction that made everyone present uncomfortable. "Good morning, esteemed council members. I do hope you're enjoying your emergency session." Chancellor Vorth stepped forward, his voice carrying all the authority he could muster. "Admiral Chen, the Galactic Council is prepared to discuss terms for..." "Terms," The human's laughter cut him off. Oh, Chancellor, you still don't grasp the situation. Allow me to clarify. The chamber's holographic displays activated, showing star maps of the galaxy. Red dots began appearing across every system, marking human vessel positions. There were thousands of them positioned at every strategic point anyone could imagine. For the past 72 hours, we've been conducting what you might call a demonstration. Every council military installation, every trade hub, every government center now has human ships in orbit. We could have destroyed all of them at any point during the last 3 days. Representative Clix's mechanical voice buzzed with panic. That's impossible. Our early warning systems would have. Detected what? Admiral Chen's voice carried amusement now. Ships that exist partially outside your dimensional space? Vessels equipped with technology that makes us effectively invisible to your sensors until we choose otherwise? My dear Clix, your early warning systems have been compromised for decades. The truth of it hit the assembly like a physical blow. The humans hadn't just been preparing militarily. They had been infiltrating, studying, and undermining galactic defenses for generations. Now then, Admiral Chen continued, let me explain how things are going to work going forward. First, you're going to immediately release every enslaved species in your territories. Second, you're going to provide full reparations to every world you've strip-mined or exploited. Third, you're going to restructure your entire governmental system to include representation for smaller species. General Thorax stood up, his carapace bristling with aggression. And if we refuse, you may have caught us off guard, but the combined might of the Galactic Council. His words were cut off by a sound that no one in the chamber would ever forget. It started as a low rumble, then built into something that could only be described as the universe itself growling. Every human ship in the galaxy had activated their engines simultaneously, creating a harmonic resonance that could be felt across space itself. General, Admiral Chen's voice was now ice cold. You seem to be under the impression that you have a choice in this matter. Allow me to correct that misconception. The holographic display shifted to show the Kreth Empire's homeworld. Thousands of human vessels hung in orbit around the planet, their dark hulls reflecting the system's twin suns. Captain Rodriguez, if you would demonstrate our resolve. A new voice joined the conversation, carrying a thick accent and barely restrained fury. With pleasure, Admiral. Target selected. The Kreth Imperial Exploitation Facility on the dark side of their moon. The facility in question was massive, a sprawling complex where the Kreth Empire processed resources stolen from dozens of worlds. It was also completely automated, with no life forms aboard. A single beam of energy lands down from one of the human ships. The facility, which had stood for over a century, simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not reduced to rubble, but completely erased as if it had never been built. That was a precision strike, Captain Rodriguez explained conversationally. We can do the same thing to any target we choose, up to and including entire planets. The choice of what happens next is entirely yours. The chamber erupted in panic. Representatives began shouting in dozens of languages, some calling for immediate surrender, others demanding military action. But Chancellor Vorth noticed something that chilled him to his core. The humans weren't making threats. They were stating facts. Silence, he commanded, using every ounce of his telepathic power to restore order. When the chamber finally quieted, he addressed the communication array directly. Admiral Chen, your demonstration has been noted, but surely we can reach some form of compromise. The galactic economy cannot survive the changes you're demanding. The laughter that emerged from the speakers was different this time. It wasn't the cold amusement they'd heard before. This was genuine mirth, as if the humans found the situation genuinely funny. Compromise? Admiral Chen repeated. Chancellor, let me tell you a story. 300 years ago, when your predecessors cut humanity off from galactic society, they condemned billions of innocent people to potential starvation and technological stagnation. Did those children who grew up in isolation get to compromise? Did the scientists who spent their entire lives working to reconnect with the galaxy get to negotiate? The tone shifted, becoming harder with each word. When your strip mining operations destroyed the Centauri colonies, did those 2 billion beings get to compromise? When the gentle folk were enslaved, did their children get to negotiate? Representative Clicks tried to interject. But the economic implications. Another voice joined the conversation, this one carrying a distinctly different accent. This is Admiral Jackson of the Terran Economics Division. Let me explain the new economic reality to you. The holographic display shifted to show trade route maps across the galaxy. Every hyperlane is now under human control. Every trading post, every mining operation, every manufacturing center. We've spent 2 centuries studying your economy, learning your weaknesses, and positioning ourselves to control every aspect of galactic commerce. Admiral Jackson's voice carried a note of professional satisfaction. As of this moment, the old galactic economy is dead. We're implementing a new system based on equitable resource distribution and mutual cooperation rather than exploitation. Worlds that have been providing resources will now receive fair compensation. Species that have been enslaved will become partners. You can't just overturn centuries of established trade, protested Counselor Resch. We just did. Admiral Jackson replied simply. The beauty of controlling every strategic position in the galaxy is that we get to make the rules now. Chancellor Vorth felt the weight of absolute defeat settling over him. What guarantee do we have that humanity won't simply become the new oppressors? Admiral Chen's voice returned, and for the first time, it carried something resembling warmth. Chancellor, that's a fair question. The answer is simple. We've learned from your mistakes. Power corrupts when it's concentrated and unaccountable. The new governmental structure we're implementing will prevent any single species from dominating others. But humans will be in charge, General Thorax pointed out. No, Admiral Chen corrected. Humans will be the enforcers. There's a difference. We're not interested in ruling the galaxy. We're interested in ensuring that what happened to us and what you've done to countless other species never happens again. Captain Santos's voice joined the conversation. Think of us as the galaxy's immune system. We'll remain mostly invisible, monitoring and preparing. But if any species tries to exploit or oppress others the way the Council has been doing, she didn't need to finish the sentence. Everyone in the chamber understood the implication. So what happens now? Chancellor Vorth asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Now you have a choice, Admiral Chen replied. You can cooperate with the transition to a more equitable galactic society, or you can resist and face the consequences. But understand this. The age of the strong preying upon the weak is over. Humanity stands as guardian against oppression now. And if we choose to cooperate, then you'll find us to be fair partners. We're not interested in revenge for its own sake. We're interested in justice. Help us build a better galaxy, and you'll find that humans can be as generous as we are ruthless. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The Galactic Council, which had ruled through fear and exploitation for millennia, had been outmaneuvered by a species they had dismissed as primitive. You have 72 hours to begin implementation of our requirements, Admiral Chen announced. After that, we'll assume you've chosen resistance and act accordingly. One more thing, Captain Rodriguez added, his voice carrying a note of dark satisfaction. To any species listening who might think they can find some way around this new reality, remember that we've been watching you for 3 centuries. We know your capabilities, your weaknesses, and your plans better than you do. The galaxy is under new management now. The transmission ended, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence. Chancellor Vorth looked around at the representatives of 47 species, all staring at her with expressions of fear and uncertainty. In less than a week, everything they had known about the balance of power in the galaxy had been completely overturned. Well, he said finally, his telepathic voice carrying resignation and perhaps a hint of relief, I suppose we should begin drafting our surrender documents. As the chamber erupted into discussions about implementation and logistics, one thought echoed through every mind present. Humanity had taught the galaxy a lesson that would never be forgotten. The strong could no longer prey upon the weak without consequence. The age of human oversight had begun, and no species would ever risk angering humanity again.